Yeah, today we're all here to talk about, all about inventions and how it's gonna be in the next phase. We know things are going more digital. It's more open. There are more platforms opening up, more options for the inventors to pick and choose from. There are many risks and advantages. So we're going to be talking about uh, the going transparent and cooperative, going moving forward with our inventions. And definitely we have here Katie with us, and Todd and Kristin. They're the founding members of the Inventors Club Worldwide. Katie here is in the public relations field. She is also a marketing strategist. Todd is our intellectual property expert with over 17 years in intellectual property attorney experience. Kristin here is our growth and scaling expert. She's witnessed many startups grow and scale, and hopefully today we all will be sharing some valuable information about all all about inventing in the current status. So yeah, Katie, if you did want to continue with it.
Yeah, so Monique, thank you so much for having us. First of all, this is a really great opportunity to tell inventors about what we're doing, about our mission, and how the three of us came together to do this for startups and inventors. Kristin and I have known each other for many, many years, had worked on other projects together that were very mission driven. And I know the idea of a mission driven with inventors sounds odd, but unfortunately the industry can be very predatory. So we are really trying to change that and approach inventors with education and all of the best information possible. And Kristin has worked with Shark Tank clients, has helped scale them and seen their success. She has also worked with some of the largest companies, and led their marketing teams, some of the largest companies in the world. So Todd, very similarly, has done the same with intellectual property. And I have worked in and out of PR for many, many years. And I really love being able to connect people, and really, I love looking at different angles of things and seeing how people can get connected. And there's always more than one way that a story can be approached. So, maybe an inventor needs some sort of PR. Maybe we're going to approach the inventor themselves and their story and their backstory, maybe more so than the invention itself, and maybe vice versa. So there's all sorts of different angles to be taken. We want to make sure that inventors as a whole understand all of those things, and also understand that it's a very long, grueling process, that this is not a get rich quick type thing. More often than not, they are not going to just get a licensing deal. Todd's a patent attorney. Just because you have a patent does not mean a company is going to immediately say, oh, let me take that patent. Let me run with that idea. That's where Kristin comes in, because you really have to have the audience. It's about building your audience. A company is not going to want to pick you up unless you've already built your audience, unless you become attractive enough to be able to be bought, really. And I know that sounds superficial, but it's the truth. This is business, and that's just how it is. So after hearing so many stories about inventors and from inventors where they were told things that were not true, they were told lies, truthfully lies, and things that were just made up by these invent companies. And the industry goes hand in hand with startups, and inventors don't often see themselves as a startup. A startup can be sort of a techie word that people are like, oh, I'm not a startup. If you have a business and you have an invention that you're trying to bring to market, you're a startup. And that's what I think people don't take seriously enough when they have an invention. They think it's just going to be a very simple, easy thing because these invent companies have told that story to them, but that is very, very wrong and very false. So we decided to create Inventors Club Worldwide a few years ago, and we just recently have put it into the nonprofit world, which we are so thrilled about and so excited about, because truthfully, it goes right along with our mission of all the things, right? I mean, we've basically been doing nonprofit work from day one, but now we can really not just, talk the talk, but walk the walk. So I go ahead, Kristin.
I was going to say, I do have the slides ready, so whenever you
Awesome.
want, I can share my screen, and we can, I know, Todd, I thought Todd would first talk, so we put him to go first.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and just to preface anything that Todd says, he's really the reason that we're here, simply because, we had worked with some private inventors over the last decade. Before that, he's been in the IP business for about 20 plus years, but had worked with big corporations or had, worked with some startups that then went really big, Munchkin being one of them. He's worked with universities, and it wasn't till the last decade where we started working with private inventors and realized that this was such a problem. So I will let him take the floor.
I just need screen sharing turned on. Yes. Oh, here we go. All right. Todd, you're muted.
Todd, you're muted. Todd.
Yes, I know. Sorry, I have the two big screens, and so I couldn't see it at the very far end of one of my screens. All right. So I thought the best way to start, or at least have any discussion, is really just cover the three basic types of intellectual property that people are familiar with to some degree, but I find that most people aren't really, we know what all these things are, but I don't think a lot of people know what some of these things are sometimes. And it really helps to at least have some sort of foundational knowledge as to exactly what each of these types of intellectual property assets are and exactly what each one might do for you. So especially if you are a startup or an individual inventor. So the first one we have here is copyright. Now copyrights, so this can be an asset for the company. Establishes the ownership in the printed material, web pages, anything else that you any creative material that you have with respect to the company that you're creating. It could be the designs or the artwork or anything else that you're developing for your company. And I have their requirements for copyright. The thing with copyrights is they're somewhat unique in the sense that by right of an international treaty, anybody who creates their own work has already established copyright rights for themselves. Now, these are common law rights. They might be hard to prove whether or not you own it at some point, and that really becomes an evidentiary thing if you ever want to enforce your copyright. But since a copyright in and of itself is sort of an easy thing to tell if someone's copying directly your material, like if they match up and you're the person who created it first, then it's a pretty straightforward path in terms of what's going on there. And then registering your your copyright, or what you consider to be copyrightable material, or the important material that you have for your company, at the Copyright Office will help establish things, establish the ownership and establish statutory damages if you ever want to enforce them. So that's sort of a general overview of copyrights. Next, trademarks. So the trademark is that concept for that name of the company, or sometimes it can be even more abstract, such as trade dress, which is sort of the look and feel of your company for, say, a restaurant or something like that. But your trademark will establish, that's you, with that trademark, with your ownership and trademark, you're establishing that you control, whatever product or service that you're putting out there, and that you're imbuing it with whatever quality and assurances of, the actual, I guess, value for the product by the use of the trademark. So that's what the trademark is. Just identifies the company and then your assurance for the good itself. And trademarks can be very valuable in the sense that, Coca-Cola obviously is a very valuable trademark in and of itself. Their product is, sugar water, carbonated sugar water. Not really the best, but, they developed it. People know what they're getting when they do it. Same thing with method. So it helps establish, what you're actually, helps put in the customer's mind what they're going to get. It helps, keep the value of that product going. And then requirement for a trademark. This too, you can actually develop trademark rights, your business name, simply by using it. And the use of that mark and prevents people from just using it somewhere else and then starting to establish their own rights. And then you have a sort of a contest as to who actually has the superior rights at any given moment. Other concepts that you should know about with respect to trademarks is that depending on what you're selling or what your product is, or what your service is, really will govern what you should help guide you in terms of what your name is. You want to make sure that your name is not too generic or too descriptive that somebody else in the same field would want to use it. So if you're selling candy, you can't call your candy company Candy. That's generic. And calling your candy company like sugary goods, maybe too descriptive. If you want to call your candy company Cavities or something like that, that's sort of suggestive of something sweet that maybe you overindulge in, right? And then if you called it, Bacon Bits, that means, it's too bizarre. Like, what does it have to do with a candy company? But you could do that, and that would pretty lock it up. Who else is going to call their candy company Bacon Bits or something else like that? Now, I don't know, my display went away. I don't know if anybody else's did. I probably would be moving on to patents at this moment. Oh, there we go. Screen sharing again. Hey. So patents. That would be the first slide. Okay, patents. So patents are the big one of them all. That's one that protects the idea itself. It's whatever concept or product, method, anything you can really. There was once a time in patent law where they said anything under the sun, but it's not really the case. There's a few things that can't be protected via patent. However, generally, most things that are a useful idea can be protected by patent. And the patent itself, some of these things are the foundation for a lot of companies, in the sense that the more patents they have, the more attractive they become to outside investors. if you actually want to have some sort of licensing deal or some sort of deal with royalties or some sort of cooperative deal, because you could have an idea where you might be able to handle developing some of the features of the ID, but maybe you can't develop all the features. Maybe you don't have the distribution markets, or you have other, in which case, when you team up or partner with some other company that may have those the capabilities that you don't have, then it helps to actually have the patent or to sort of establish who owns what and at what stage of the business deal that you're involved in. It just helps to carve out what your position is with respect to every other competitor out there in the market. You can use it also to suggest that other companies not enter into the same general marketplace as you, and a lot of companies, that they know that you have a patent or there's possible IP protection for what you have, they're going to, rather than risk dealing with problems, they'd rather just move on to something else. I hear a lot of times people go, well, they're just going to knock it off and do something like that. People do try to do that, but either they're not that successful, or generally the knockoffs are garbage to begin with, because to knock it off, they do something that has to, they're trying to avoid the patent, or it's just a get rich quick scheme that they have to get out of real quick after they do it, and the patent really isn't the patent keeps them from getting too close to their idea and just like really taking the idea, and then sometimes they might try to do something, but generally I don't find that it's more of a, I think of the patent more of as an asset that people use as sort of a foundational block for their company in terms of just developing it and helping to promote and sell their company and to market it to other people. And then for the requirements for a patent, now, you can have businesses and you don't have to get a patent. Not everybody has to come up with a new idea. You can certainly say, I'm going to sell ice cream and that's what I'm going to do, and that's all there is to it, and I don't care about getting a patent for my new ice cream dispensing system. But the other things, the copyrights, the trademarks, that would come into play there to start to sort of do all the window dressings for your business. For patent, it has to be a new idea, or at least novel or useful, or somehow advantageous to some extent. And a lot of times, it's hard to get to that threshold. And if you do think you have that, then you file for the patent and you go back and forth and you argue with the Patent Trademark Office. They'll reject you. They always do. Then you go back and forth until you settle upon something where they go, okay, well, we see that, we get it, we think this is new. And really, it's a fun little game I play with the Patent Trademark Office, but and that's IP property in a nutshell.
Yeah. I actually have a small follow-up question on that.
Sure.
So what do inventors, what should they expect going forward with this journey? Like the time, the cost, like should one think 1-2 years and 20, 30,000, or should one think 5 years and more? What should they expect?
About $2 million. It depends. It depends on what. So it's sort of so the more complicated their invention is, it may cost more to have it drafted up front and put on file, but it might be easier to prosecute and get it allowed in the Patent Trademark Office because it's complex, and it's hard for the patent office to match up and say, well, you don't get the patent because of X, Y, and Z. A really simple idea may not cost as much to prepare, but then you're fighting tooth and nail in the patent trademark office because they can pull everything out and say, well, this looks like it, this looks like it, what are you talking about? And so you're fighting longer, and so it might add up there. So on average, I find like file and then a couple responses, you're looking at around 15 to 20K after every, from filing to then prosecution and an ultimate allowance. So that's a general ballpark figure for your average patent, I would say. You know, you have your initial drafting costs, and that's for the one that gets examined and stuff. And that overall time frame probably is around 2 years on average. You know, for startups, a lot of times I recommend a provisional application because, you know, people think they have a great idea, they want to preserve their rights, they preserve the rights, they have that established, but then, you know, not everybody makes it to the end of the, or you know, they have a year to sort of develop their idea and sort of move forward, and then they end up just not getting there, or what they thought that was going to happen. You know, they file this and someone was going to knock on their door and make all their dreams come true, just didn't happen at that moment, right? They didn't put in the actual, you know, labor to develop the actual idea or to sort of make it come to fruition. So, you know, that's more of a, you know, like a $1,600, you know, thing. You have it written up decently, have it on file, and you know, preserve your rights and make sure that it's there if you want to tap into it, but not putting out so much money that, you know, if they don't have, if they somehow lose interest or they don't want to continue to pursue it, they're not out a lot of money. Now, on the flip side, you might say, well, gee, I don't know. Well, maybe they should go for the, you know, file for the large one right away, because that will like sort of give them the personal motivation to move forward with it, because they don't want to be like, oh, I'm out all this money, why'd I do this? Maybe I'm nuts. And I think that's just something for each person to decide what they feel comfortable with, right? Rather than do a hard, because it's a varied market and everybody deals with it a little different. And you'll have some people be like, well, this will be like, you know, we'll need $20,000, $30,000 from you up front to, and that's a big deal, or they'll do something like that. And but it varies. It depends on what's going on and really who, you know, and it's also based on the Patent Trademark Office. So the Patent Trademark Office charges heavier fees to large corporations and large entities. So things cost more for large companies simply because they meet a certain threshold, and the same thing holds. So it can be a little, it's less costly for the individual inventor in general than it is for the, because the fees that are going on in the background are less.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue into what I was about to talk about, which is sort of the journey of, you know, startups and inventors and how they approach, you know, building their business and growing their business. And often people will approach me or us as an organization with an idea and they don't know where to start. And most people don't start thinking of IP. They, you know, usually we have to refer them to Todd or you know, somebody to protect them and their idea. Some people do, like they're savvy enough to know these things, but most people just think, I have an idea, how do I build it? What are the steps? And here, I'll share my screen again. Sorry about the, I don't know why I'm sharing all of the things, but you know, whatever. So what I tried to do was put together some concepts of like the different stages of business, and especially when they come to us with like an idea stage, which we really do have a lot of idea stage people at Inventors Club. And I think that's the biggest pain point we try to help solve is you have this great idea, how do you bring it to market? And then from there, how do you take it and grow it into a viable business? How do you become successful? How do you actually, you know, get through that process to, I mean, most startups fail, to be honest. So like, how do we actually take your idea and move it through all these different processes? So like, we have a product or idea stage, there's a period of validation, right? And so the idea that your product or invention or your idea has to be validated by, I mean, lots of different ways to validate an idea. One of them is IP, right? Like, is it already taken? Like, do you have the rights to actually, develop that idea? Or like, what type of development can you do based on that idea? Is it an idea that, is fundable? Will somebody pay, or do you have the ability to pay to bring that idea to market? Can you actually do some research to find that there is a market for your idea? So you have to, go through this period of validation to make sure that your idea is something that has merit and that it's going to be supported. The next stage typically is the customer validation. So you have a great idea and you test it on the market, and customer validation means somebody's going to buy it. I mean, you have a great idea, but if nobody buys it, it's going nowhere. And that's, that's a lot of the startups that we've worked with probably can get through these first two stages. There's typically, like, once you get to the customer validation stage, you can probably find somebody, to purchase your product if you position yourself well enough, if you have a good enough marketing base, but can you execute the marketing? That's operational validation. Can you actually show the product or idea validation? Can you show the world that you're solving the pain point for this particular product or idea? And how can we, continue to provide the service? Can we actually do the back end? Can we run the business? Can you actually pay the bills and hire the people necessary to execute on the operation? And then, finally the financial, and that's part of operational, but, are you going to be able to scale it? Are you gonna, be able to make money? Like, it's easy to sell a dollar bill for 75 cents, so can we actually make money doing this? And I was talking about growth marketing. I know that, I wanted to bring up these ideas. So, like, this is a different market than even 5 years ago. We have so many more tools in helping startups and businesses scale and grow. A few years ago, we didn't have as many channels. We didn't have as much digital marketing. We didn't have all of the things that we have now. So we used to have to make a lot of educated guesses based on broad demographic data, and now we can really have dialed down individual level data to be able to understand responses, to the point where we put an ad out and we can know within a day whether the creative is working or the messaging is working. We can pivot in that same moment, and put out, different messages. So we have so much more information to change on, and pivot really quickly. I kind of put this out of order because we were kind of rushing to get this done. But this idea of customer centric, and I'm just going to stop sharing right now because I want to just talk about it. But customer centric is a sort of new way of marketing that's come out of this, having all the data. Before, again, we would have like commercials and billboards and, stuff that we were always talking to people and like presenting to them, versus our display ads in newspapers and print. And we had salespeople, no longer, that's just not the model anymore. We have conversations and relationships with people, on a digital space. So what growth marketing entails is building a customer-centric model. So you have a product you have validated and you have, worked through a you've got customers who are interested, but really a growth model is building a relationship of advocates for your business. And you do that through, a process of nurturing a customer through an entire journey, from first stage of awareness through like the retargeting, which and nurturing them as a person who's going to help you sell your business, your product or service. So we don't just sell to them and let them go. We're continually asking from them. We're giving, and then we're asking for them to help us build our business. And that is really kind of the whole, like, decentralized has really given us this ability to get personal and respond quickly to people. And that's, the digital space has allowed us to have distributed teams. We don't have to have, we don't have to have everyone in an office, and we don't have to have salespeople going on making physical calls to get products into storefronts. We can actually meet people where they're at and invite them into our business and into our story. And I think that's kind of the biggest changes in marketing in the last, it's evolving. Like since COVID, things have changed even that much more dramatically. I work right now with some pretty large retailers, and they're changing their model as we speak. We're literally working on new ad platforms in the moment because they recognize that what happened 2 months ago is not relevant today. It's not, because now people, 2 months ago we had different fears, and now we're back in sort of reopening into the world, but we still have, COVID on our mind, but it's everything changes so fast now that, marketing is, and being in front of people is ever changing, and the companies that can't change rapidly are just failing. And if you're not changing constantly, you're like literally just waiting to die. Like that's, big brands have learned that. So anyway, I'm rambling, but that's basically all I was going to talk about. And
yeah, I actually had in the point just before this one, you spoke about bringing people to your core mission or the company without physically having them in your building or having to employ them actually. So what are the best ways to either hire contractors, part-time employees, how to start, because also cost is very important in the beginning, right? So what are the tools that you would recommend using? How would person go about hiring the first contractor, the one who would design either the logo, website, the messaging, the creative that you talked about testing messages. So just, those quick really tips about, going about all those points.
Yeah. Honestly, it's a really hard thing to do. One of the reasons, so we actually, through Inventors Club, we're starting a company, a platform that's going to help identify service providers for people who are starting businesses. And it's because you just don't know who you're hiring. It's again, it's not the same because you're hiring people, in California that you've never met and you don't know anybody who's used them. You're just going based on like some internet recommendations. And so we're trying to fulfill a need to, help establish some trust within this space. And so, I think it's just really hard right now to know who you're hiring. And that's the reason why we're starting Startified actually. But in general, you just have to, in the creative space, you have to look at their work samples. You have to, look as much at reviews as you can possibly, get referrals as much as possible, and failing having referrals, then you have to, Sorry, I just think I think referrals are the best way. And like organizations like ours, who we've curated, people that we've trusted, who we've used in the past. And we also have a lot of people who we refer to, so we can say they've done a good job for a lot of different types of businesses, not just one type. I'm not trying to just be like shameless plug about us, but like it's like a huge thing that we found. I mean, one of the reasons Katie really started the Facebook group, which started Inventors Club, was because everybody was asking for help with this issue. Nobody knows who to go to for, these services, and actually what do they need, and everybody's going to try to sell you something that, and everyone has different ideas about what you need. So if we can help build that framework out for people and help, based on our experience of helping all these different companies start and be successful, help them get a sense of what they actually need and what they don't need, more importantly, and help them save money and utilize their time and resources, appropriately. That's really our goal.
Yes. And to find other professionals like ourselves that are in it for the long run. We're not in it to make a quick dollar. Like there's many professionals that are in this industry that are there, unfortunately, for those reasons. So with the company that Kristin was referring to, which was sort of birthed out of Inventors Club Worldwide, we're hoping to change that and change it so that, inventors and startups have a place to go to find professionals like ourselves. There are many of us out there, we're not the only ones. There's many of us out there that have seen the good, bad, and the ugly, and they've also seen the best. And, we want the best for people. So,
your slides if you'd like. If you want to go through your presentation.
Yeah, that sounds great. Do you have the slides? If not, that's fine too. So I'm going to talk a little bit about PR, and we start with the first one. Make sure you know your audience and you're crafting your pitch appropriately to journalists. I had talked about that earlier on with different types of angles. You really want to make sure that the journalist you're pitching covers the topic that you are pitching for, right? And if it's not specific to that, find an angle that might work specific to that journalist. So, if say I have an inventor that might be attached to a certain foundation, and I want to pitch to a certain journalist that might have something to do with that foundation or has written about it in the past, meaning like a nonprofit organization or something along those lines. They've never covered a product before, but coming in with the angle of that foundation might be a great way to get them sort of interested and looped in. And then they might say, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then, you'll get under their eyes, which is exactly what you want to do. You really want to do research on the journalist that you're pitching. Let them know that you appreciate their work, similar to what Kristin said earlier, how marketing is changing so much and it's really gotten personal. That's happened with PR as well. I have found that it's actually a lot easier to be able to go on to Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn and comment on a lot of these journalists, pages, if they happen to have a personal website, because a lot of them are freelancers, they might work for a big company. I'll give one example. The editor of Entrepreneur magazine, he also has his own platform. I've reached out to him through his personal platform, and I got a response from him because he was grateful that I sent him a message to his, to his contact form. It might mean that they now have your email, but if that's something that you're looking for, then so be it. So if you're trying to do PR on your own, this is a great way to do it. And stroke their egos, let them know that you really appreciate the stories they've covered in the past. Everybody likes to hear positive feedback. Give them that positive feedback, whether it be in an email or whether it be posting on their social. You want them to remember you. If you're going to just be cold emailing people with your product or your story, guess what? You're not the only one. They're getting thousands of these things a week. You have to stand apart from them. So maybe opening up the email with, I loved your article on such and such. That's going to get their attention more so than, even some fancy subject line.
For me to.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks. So Help a Reporter Out is a really great resource. I use it all the time. I do have a paid version because I use it for my clients, but you can get a free version that works just as well if you are bootstrapping and doing PR on your own. They will send you up to 3 emails a day. If you do the paid version, it's $19 a month. And I have access to about 200 pages of journalist requests every single day, and they more often than not they change daily, and you can go through it, take a look, and then really craft a pitch accordingly right there on the Harrow. So it is helpareporterout.com. It's not harrow.com, even though we call it Harrow. That's a totally different site, but it's an amazing resource, especially if you're bootstrapping. So take a look at that. I know a lot of people who have gotten published just from Harrow, and it's an amazing resource. So this is something I just talked about a few minutes ago. Warm up your journalists by commenting, liking their social posts, social media, signing up as a subscriber on their personal website if they have one. This works. I wish I could find the story. There's a story about I think she had a salon in New York City, and she went completely viral. She went viral because she went through all the different journalists' websites on Twitter, looked them up, became a subscriber, liked their stuff on Twitter, liked their stuff on Instagram, and all of a sudden she's getting placements left and right because of that. So that's something that you can do on your own. Me being a PR professional, I do that all the time for clients, but this is sort of a trade secret that anybody can do, obviously. So yeah, do it, and hopefully you'll see some success. But do your research. Look at what the journalists have written in the past. I've had journalists tell me this, that they really appreciate it when, people that are pitching them understand what they've written before. There's nothing more insulting to them than to get something that they don't write for. And I realize that when you're trying to get under the eyes of journalists, you don't mean to insult them, but that is very insulting to them. So you don't want to anger them. You don't want to tick them off. Another thing that gets them annoyed is having media kits that are attached in a PDF. If they see that, they will delete you. So make sure that your media kit is in a link that they can just click on and look at. They do not want their email to be jammed up with storage.
Okay.
That might be it. So
yeah, I actually have a couple of follow-ups for you, Katie. I know
sure.
we might have spoken about some of those points, in different occasions, but here for our communities, what do you see the the current scene? You know, you spoke before about, you know, 1 year ago, everything about COVID was getting, you know, traction, but now
Right.
people are shifting to non-COVID or after post-COVID. What do you see the next 3 to maybe even 5 years? What will get the most traction and, you know, press and public relation wise?
You know, it's really hard to say 3 to 5 years because, like Kristin said, things are changing so rapidly. But I can tell you that, and like I said, anything that has to do with COVID, they don't want to hear about. However, if it's a business that was built during COVID, that might be something different. You know, it's just a different story. But that can't be the only piece of the story. That's not going to be your selling point. It's got to have you've got to have some really great hooks.
Yeah. And in terms of the public image, can you talk about the invention versus the inventors, you know, public image? I know also you've mentioned it before, but you said if there's something personal, something emotional, something, you know, what
Right.
should the inventors really focus on?
Honestly, I think right now in this time of, we are in everybody's living room, in everybody's lives, right? And like Kristin mentioned, it's super personal. I honestly think that the inventor story is just as important as the invention story. Both of those things have to be great and they have to be told properly to be successful. So if you can hit those both really well, and everybody has a story. So it's not like one person's story is necessarily going to be better than another person's story, right? Everybody has a unique story. It's just a matter of how it's told. So the inventor cannot shy away from sort of being in the spotlight. They really need to be in the spotlight to make sure that we are not in the days where, you know, as seen on TV, it's just the product. No, those days are gone. Everybody wants to hear about the person and the brand story. The inventor and the brand story go hand in hand. So I think that's really important. You really need to have headshots. When I'm sending out media kits, I have headshots of the inventor or the CEO, if it's another type of startup and not, you know, I deal with tech startups as well. So, you know, you've got to have some decent headshots, and but they can't be super formal. You know, they've got to be eye-catching. So anything that would be eye-catching to really catch the attention of the media. And when you're putting together your media kit, it really should be no more than 4 pages long. And it should look professional. This should not be like a Word document. This needs to be done in Canva, or hire someone to do it. You know, there's lots of ways, but that is what's going to sell you. If you're going to put money anywhere, put it into your media kit. And it does not have to cost a fortune, but it has to look good. And I would say probably 3 photos, maybe, you know, on the 2 photos on the low end. That would be a photo of the inventor, and then also a photo of the product. Even better would be maybe 3 or 4 photos. A photo of the inventor with the product would be the best. You know, but you really want to make it fun. You want to make it current. You really want to make sure you have social media links on there as well. All of those things should be embedded into the media kit. So when you're crafting your pitch, that will be separate. That's going to be a separate copy text into the email. And then you're going to attach the media kit at the bottom in a link. And any other past types of media that you've gotten, I don't care what it is, whether you did a speaking engagement at a local college or whatever you've done, if you've done a podcast, whatever you've done, we want to see those links embedded inside the media kit. Because that's what journalists want to see. So
yeah, in terms of timing, like how far before the launch, I would say, this PR campaign should start? When should one be ready with all this media kits and, you know, starting with if they're doing it themselves or if they're contacting a professional just as yourself?
So it really depends. You know, a lot of our inventors have done Kickstarter campaigns. So if you're doing a Kickstarter campaign where you're raising money, you know, you might do a PR campaign around that. That might be sooner than the actual product launch. The product launch campaign would be, you know, I don't know, maybe about a month prior. You don't want to go too far out because then people forget. But, you know, I would say about a month prior, and then, you know, the Kickstarter, sometimes the Kickstarter happens 6 months before, or sometimes 9 months before the actual product comes out. And that's okay, you know, because it's almost like, you know, then you get that second round of media, which is great too.
Really interesting story. One of my clients, pre-launch, they had, they bootstrapped their PR. Before Katie was, we could get Katie involved, but they like went and knocked on, literally this before COVID and everything. They went on, knocked on Harpo, you know, Harpo Studios for Oprah, and like every week went and hounded them about their new product that was coming out, and that's how they got their Oprah's Favorite Thing placement. Their brand launched in October. Oprah's Favorite Thing came out in November, but they had started pitching the product in like April that year. April through
squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Like just constantly, just went all the time to them, and they got the placement, and
That's
it
awesome.
skyrocketed them to, you know, crazy. Now they're in the Smithsonian right now, you know, like they're doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah, like, so just to pile on here, like this is, you know, I personally feel like publicity, you know, the timing is really important, but you know, any sort of publicity you have that you can capitalize on, it does take a lot of time for things to get published sometimes. So even if you do get a hold of a reporter, it might be 3 months before they can place it anyway.
Right.
You know, those things matter. So
in an ideal world, someone would hire me like 3 months before. But typically that does not always happen because I deal with a lot of inventors and startups that are bootstrapping.
well,
and I totally understand.
And I think your value, like Katie, so Katie's value would be not only just like getting placements, it's positioning, helping people actually position the product, position themselves, you know, getting their personal profiles ready. You know, that stuff's super important, not just the placement in the press, you know, and that's what new brands don't realize. And so I think, yes, sooner the better.
Right. Yeah. And if you can work with someone who's willing to work with you within your budget, which is something that I always offer, you know, all the better, you know, but placements are important because we are in full on digital age here, and people want to know, what are your links? What links do you have? You know, and if you just send your website, they're like, need to see more than just that, you know? So it's a tough game. And I think that from what I've heard from journalists, specifically television, they are being inundated with pitches because apparently a lot of people were doing what a lot of our inventors were doing during COVID, you know, inventing and starting businesses, which is fantastic. However, it just makes it that much more difficult during this time for people to be seen. So you really have to separate yourself, which is why I highly recommend make yourself memorable, right? So when they see your email, make them remember you. You know, I commented a few times on Jason's, I can't remember his last name now. He's the editor for Entrepreneur. I commented a few times on his stuff. And then I thought, you know, I'm going to sign up for his website. And he personally sent me an email, which I thought was really, really cool. So, you know, I think when you do that, just think about sort of the age-old statement, treat others the way you would want to be treated. You know, think about your own personal social media with your business pages and all of that. You want people to be liking your posts. You want people to be commenting on your posts. And just because Jason is the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, he's actually trying to start his own company, right? So he wants all of that, even though entrepreneur seems like the very tippity top, but he's an entrepreneur. He wants his own thing. So the more that we can do that, it really positions you to get placed with a lot of these journalists. And that's like the best advice I can give, because it's really about, I'm all about building relationships as much as possible, you know, and organically building relationships. And that is, we can do that in the digital, you know, ecosystem, just like we can in person. And we can do it much more easily. I mean, I used to run from event to event. I mean, Kristin knows, I would call her, I would be at 3 events. I would be like, I have 3 events today. I have to just stop into each one of them. You know, it was insane. And I talk to people who are similar to me that did those things. I'll never do them again. I don't care what comes back. I will never do that to the kids, to Todd. It's just too difficult. But to be able to be online and build these relationships where I can sit in my office and do it, heck yeah, it's just, it's fantastic, because your reach is so much greater. I don't have to just be in the Philadelphia region or the New York region. I can be on the West Coast. I can be in Europe. I can be, you know, pretty much anywhere. And that's, and I could be anybody. Any of you can do this. So, I mean, I think that's the best advice. It's really about building relationships for long term, because you want to build long-term relationships with people so that, you know, you get placements and they talk about your business, and they talk about how wonderful you are because you've talked about how wonderful they are.
Okay, I think, yeah, this was great, really. So I think we can have like each couple of questions, like, for example, who should be coming to you, Katie, Kristin, and Todd? What should they have prepared already, and through what channels? As you said, you know, maybe your favorite is your website, email, following up, maybe on social media.
Absolutely. And anybody who watches this, we would highly encourage them to hop on one of our ICW weekly calls. We are, like I said, moving into a nonprofit. And that will be changing, you know, some of the membership, you know, the things that we have with the membership and all of that, but that will be coming, you know, later this year. So a lot of exciting things there. We would really encourage you just to hop on one of our calls. We are always here to answer any questions. And I can be found at katiecupstas.com. So our personal companies are katiecupstas.com. Kristin's personal company is 2knorth.com. And Todd can just be reached at tacupstas@gmail.com. Or you can reach him through me as well.
Yeah, Kristin?
I mean, yeah, I think that, you know, I encourage everyone just to join our ICW calls, and we can help find, you know, resources for you there.
Yes, absolutely. You're on mute. Okay.
Good with mute. Yeah, generally just anybody who wants to reach out to us, you know, best way is through Inventors Club Worldwide, at least for me. At least, you know, for these types of things, that's the best way.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you have, you know, if you have questions for any of us, they can be answered there. If one of us happens to not be on that day, you know, we can follow up and get you the answer for sure. But thank you so much for this, Monif. This has been a really great hour.
Yes, definitely. I think it's very exciting, also to me, and I'm sure also many of us here on Integra Pitch would love to be part of your new platform. I think it's amazing. Having profiles for service providers. I know we have many in the design and prototype fields. Maybe they can also be service providers. I'm not sure if we spoke about the details, but I'm sure if I see Kristin shaking her head. If you want to, Kristin, you can do.
Yeah, actually, everyone can go to startified.org. It's startified.org. I guess we'll paste it in, some comments or something somewhere. And just register. The process is going to be that everyone can join for free. We are going to ask, we're going to have some requirements, including service providers sign a code of ethics and standards to be part of our organization. And if they accept that and sign it and upload some information, they can become startified. And then we have a review process where after a certain amount of, we can't disclose all of our things, but we actually have a color coding for certain benchmarks. So once they've met them, they become, fully startified. So,
and then, they'll get closer to, being those contractors that inventors would usually want to reach out to develop their solutions, products, whatever the need
we
is.
have everything from, the creative websites to, other like legal, financial, operational, marketing, PR. Like we're going to have all those on the platform. So,
and this is a tech platform. Kristin, even though, we all collaborated on ideas, Kristin built it. So she is absolutely phenomenal. Todd has filed the IP on it, so it is patent pending.
It was collaborative,
which is really exciting. But no, she did all of the back end. She's incredible. For someone who's not a coder or an engineer, she certainly has the skill. So a software engineer, that's the word. So it's really exciting. It's like a dream come true because it's really originally what I had hoped for. Soon after we created the Facebook group and was, started to see that there was such a great need for this after tossing out so many bad professionals out of the group and then seeing so many good ones pop up and then seeing such a need for more and more, professionals that approach their business the way we do. So it's really awesome. So we're really excited to share it with everyone. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll join us on one of our ICW calls. They are weekly at Thursdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are headquartered in Philadelphia, so we are on the East Coast. So if you're out on the West Coast, it'll be 9 a.m. But I wanted to share the time, and I'm sure Monique can get you the link.
Definitely, yes. I think I'll go through all the information that you shared. We'll put, as Kristin has mentioned, we'll put the links in the description and in the mail and comments. And talk about transparent and collaborative. And this should be it, right?
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Todd, Kristin, and Katie. And I'll definitely see you again very soon. And have a safe trip to the West Coast.
Thank you so much. We'll see you Thursday. I promise we'll be on. It'll be 9 a.m. for us, but we'll be there.
Okay.
Look at Todd's face. He's like, what? Even if he's not on, I'll be on. So it'll be great. All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Have a good day.
See you.
Bye.